Everybody, my name is Heather McCarty, and I'm the Director of Learning and Development here at the Mission Continues. And we're going to spend some time introducing you to a model that's used for problem solving and decision making. We've all had those experiences when we just feel stuck and we aren't quite sure the steps to take in order to move forward. And one of the models that we found to be incredibly helpful in getting unstuck is the GROW model. So over the next few minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to identify the different components of the GROW model that's used for making decisions and problem solving. And then we're going to walk through an example of how you can put that into practice. Now, one thing that is really great about the GROW model is it's applicable across many different situations. So not only can you utilize this in your personal life or your familial situations, but it's also really a great model to use in team settings as well as in work settings. And this framework is used to help you move forward in decision making, to identify those places where you're unsure of what to do next, and ultimately allows you to have a breakthrough so that you can take action and move forward in the best way possible. And in order to accelerate our progress, we need that help in determining those actions to move forward. Now, this particular framework is made up of 4 different components, and we're going to walk through that. Their first is goals. You take the time to set goals before you get started. You then identify the reality. Then you explore what are the options that you have at your disposal. And then finally, you decide on which of those you feel most comfortable in actually putting in place to move forward to either make a decision or to solve a particular problem. Now, we'll dig in a little more specifically with each of these components in just a moment. But ultimately, when we are able to identify the goals, what's going on with the reality, explore different opportunities, and then land on a way forward, it allows us to make decisions, which ultimately sets us up to take actions. And eventually that leads to better results. And that's something that I know everyone is looking for. Whether, again, it's in your personal life or your professional life, that idea of how to get from feeling like you're unable to move to truly seeing results play out. So let's take a deeper look at each of the components of the GROW model. So we start first with the phase of goals. And here, what we're doing is we're determining, why is this important? Why does it matter? What are we ultimately trying to accomplish? And then finally, what happens if we don't accomplish that? What are the implications for yourself and for others if you aren't able to achieve this goal? And in this phase, it's really an opportunity to say, is this worth my time? And is this worth the time of other people? The next phase is exploring the reality. And in this particular phase, that's where you have a chance to identify what are the things that you've tried, what are the things that stand in the way, what has been happening already. So this is where you get to explore some of the situation, the context around this particular goal. It also is a chance for you to explore what impact could this have on other people, and how might other people be experiencing the same situation. And it's at this place, as you go through this set of questioning, you're able to really check yourself to say, is the goal that you first identified, is that even realistic? Does it make sense? Is it worth your time in order to move forward? The next phase is then where it gets fun. This is where we have the opportunity to start thinking generatively, to start brainstorming and coming up without judgment, all of the different ways that you could achieve the goal. And the types of questions we ask here are, how might we go about this? If there were no limitations, if the sky was the limit, what choices might you make? Also starting to think about, if other people were involved or if other people were brought in, what might they need to know to be a part of moving this forward? Additionally, you might think about, what options have you come up with that actually might need a little more time spent on them in order to determine whether they are feasible, whether they are truly an option or not. And one thing that's incredibly important here is to not hold back. We often, as we start generating ideas, immediately will shut it down and say, oh, well, that's not possible, or that's completely unrealistic. When you implement the GROW model, the idea is to put everything out there. As outlandish as it may seem, it could spark something that is truly not only feasible, but might be the best way for you to achieve that goal. And then finally, we have to make some decisions about what you're willing to do in order to achieve that goal. And that's what we call the way forward. And in this particular phase, the things that you are checking are, what will you need to do? You have to identify which one of those options do you feel committed to enough that you would be willing to put forth some effort, take some action. And you also need to identify what are those things that could potentially stand in the way of taking that action, whether it be priorities that you have, whether it be obligations, whether it be a lack of resources. And it's not enough just to identify what might get in the way. It's also just deciding, how will you move those out of the way? What will it take? And at this point, the expectation is that you are truly identifying and committing to not only what you'll do, by when, and how it can be followed up on. So now that we've had a chance to introduce you to what this framework is, let's put it into practice. I'm going to walk through an example of something that may resonate with many of you during this time and is definitely a realistic example from my own life. And as I've said, this is something that can be translated across many different situations. And the one that I'm going to share is from more of a personal familial situation. So as we said, we always start with the goal, identifying what is it that we are trying to accomplish. And you'll see here, let me move my picture so that I'm not in the way here. I'm asking myself, what do I want to accomplish? And what would happen, or what's the implication if I don't? So for this particular goal, this is about, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? That's not as easy of a question to answer these days. And when I answer, what are the implications if I don't come up with what we're going to do for dinner tonight? We won't have a meal that everybody can eat. It's not as easy as hopping out to go get something or sending someone on a run. So for me, this is a goal that is worthwhile in moving forward. The next step, as we use the GROW model, is to explore the realities. And remember, this is where we're looking at what's been happening, what is the current state, what are any particular limitations, as well as what are the things that we've tried already. So again, keeping in mind that my goal here is to determine what we'll do for dinner tonight for the family. The reality is that it has to be a place that offers curbside pickup. Another thing that my family has decided is we're trying to support local businesses. So we want to be a part of stimulating the local businesses that are truly feeling the strain of this situation we're in right now. Another reality that we've experienced is there's a really long wait to get food delivered or to pick up, just given the shortage of staff and the reduction of staff in many of the establishments in my community. Additionally, I know that a reality is that not everybody in my family has the same dietary needs. So I need to ensure that there are options that everybody in my family will be able to have a good meal for. We also, a situation is that if we don't decide on this, we don't have the groceries in the house today in order to cook something here. So that's not an option when we get to options that I'll be able to look at. That's a part of my reality or the situation. It's a limitation. And then finally, in my particular community, there are very few local businesses that are offering delivery. So many of them are only offering curbside service. Now, I haven't gone through every possible piece of reality here, just for the purposes of sharing this with you all. So when you would go through this, there would be plenty more that you likely could be exploring in this reality phase. And it's important to spend time truly thinking about what already have you tried, what are your limitations, and what are some potential barriers that you have to be aware of. So if you remember, our next phase, and the phase that I really enjoy, is where we get to be generative, where we get to think, what if? It's our options phase. And for the purpose of this particular video, I haven't been as generative as I normally would, just for the sake of time, but I have shown you an example here of how to think outside the box and not be constrained. So when I think about the options that we have in order to ensure that we have dinner for tonight, and that I've already taken into account some of the reality, I don't have food here at home, I asked myself, what might we do with no constraints? So you can see my first one here is have lobster flown into our family. Now, is that something that is realistic? Probably not, but I'm demonstrating how important it is to get everything out there, because that likely will bring up something else. Another example here is order something different from everyone's favorite restaurant. That addresses the needs of everybody in the family. Everybody gets something they want and can eat. Another option I came up with is go to the grocery store, get the things I need to make dinner at home. Additionally, I thought about this constraint I have of there's not a lot of places around here, so I might need to do some research. I could look on Yelp or something else to determine what are the best options in my area. Another idea I came up with is we could decide as a family, what's the cuisine that we are interested in having tonight? And then from there, decide which options locally we're going to go with. Now, as we finish up the options phase, one of the things that we need to do is ask ourselves, which of these do we feel committed to taking action on? So as I thought through this, and the example of my family here, what we decided is actually this last one, that we would first determine the cuisine, and from there, we would then find a place that would be able to deliver or offer a curbside pickup. So now that we have gone through, we've checked our goal, we've decided, we've explored the different contexts, the realities, the obstacles, we started to generate what might we do, what all of our possible courses of actions are. And then we said, you know what, there's one that we actually feel strongly about. Now we have to plot that course in order to move forward. So you see here, we have to check ourselves. We have to say, one, does this still interest us enough in order to take the next steps? If that's the case, what are the next steps? And as we talked about before, we need to be proactive in thinking about what are the things that could get in the way. So the next step is we have to narrow down a cuisine. We have to decide as a family what it is that we want to have. Is it pizza? Is it Mexican? Is it Asian food? Is it burgers? We have to come up with that decision. And then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to spend some time doing some research to see what local businesses will do a delivery or pickup. One of the things that we know is that we're going to have to do this by 6 p.m. So that allows me to have some accountability and to backwards plan from a time that I can hold myself accountable to taking these steps. Another thing that I'm going to need to do is see if they take any no-touch measures. Just given the situation that we're in, and a barrier could be potential contamination, I want to make sure that that's something that they can do as well. And then finally, as I thought about something that might get in the way, I need to look at budget. So we're not in a place where a $50 meal tonight makes sense. So I need to make sure that it fits within a budget that works for our family. Now, after I've gone through this process of identifying a goal, exploring the current situation, generating several different options, choosing one that I'm interested in moving forward on, and then figuring out from there the steps I would need to take with that particular option, the next thing I need to do is I actually need to go back and check to make sure that if I take those steps, will that actually lead to the goal that I set? So if I, with my family, narrow down a cuisine, spend some time searching then to find local businesses that can do delivery or pickup, that I ensure that it stays within my budget, that we can order by 6 p.m., I would see, yes, that will mean that we will be able to have dinner tonight and that everyone's needs will be met. So this is an example of how you might utilize the GROW model. It's only one way. And hopefully you've seen that in a situation that could feel pretty overwhelming, if any of you have been in the situation that my family has been in, of just being almost stuck in thinking about how we're going to eat or how we're going to choose another meal tonight after we've been choosing so many meals at home, it can feel daunting. What this does is it gives you a way to approach those decision-making opportunities you have and feel like once you've gotten to a place where you're almost paralyzed, being stuck, this allows you to get unstuck so that you can move forward, leads to progress, which is something that all of us are looking for. So thank you for joining us for this very short introduction to the GROW model. Please feel free to reach out with any questions you may have on this and look forward to seeing you all again soon. Take care, everyone.